Have you ever wondered what happens in therapy? How do I find a therapist? What are all these different names and concepts? If that's you, then stay tuned to this video and I'm going to talk about what to expect in therapy and how to search for a therapist. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, the Authentically Be You YouTube channel. My name is Bianca Hughes and I'm a licensed professional counselor in Roswell, Georgia. So one of the things I get asked and people want to know is, how do I find a therapist? What do all these terms mean in therapy? What makes sense? And I know it could be really overwhelming, so I want to give you a couple of things to kind of think about and to help you in the process. So before we get started, let's go ahead and get into the definitions. There is therapist, there is counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist. So let's make sense of all of these things so that you know what you're looking for. So let's first start with who has a master's. Everyone has a master's degree. That is the basic to do any type of therapy. So you will have a therapist or a counselor. That is a name used interchangeably. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to use the term therapist. There is also a social worker can also provide therapy. Psychologists can provide therapy. And there are still some psychiatrists that also provide therapy, and those two have a form of a doctorate degree. Oh, also, not to confuse you, but there are some therapists out there who also have a doctorate degree, and they maybe have it in counseling doctorate. So, and they often teach in the schools, in the grad schools. So not to cause confusion, but just to let you know of the different things. So, therapist, social worker, counselor, you might have heard marriage and family therapist. They all provide talk therapy, the one that you see on the couch, okay? And there's also people who have an associate's or they have a supervisor, so they're still working to get their full license. So let's talk about that. For example, let's use me. I graduated from my master's program and I was able to see clients. However, I still had to have a director and I still had to be under supervision. I had to have 3 years of training to have my full license, which meant that I no longer had a supervisor. What does that mean for you? Can I still see someone who does not have a full license? Absolutely, because they still have their training and they still, know what they do. The difference is, of course, is the experience and the time. I mean, when you think about it, in order to counsel, you have to start somewhere. Are they going to do a bad job? Absolutely not. You can have someone who's fully licensed and they still don't know not that they don't know what they're doing, but they still don't work for you. So go with what works for you. If you feel more comfortable with someone who has a full license set, okay, I get it. But also don't discount someone who doesn't have a full license. Just something to think about. Then we have the people who have a doctorate, psychologist. They also do talk therapy, and the other thing they also do is they do testing, so intelligence testing, IQ testing. They also do forms of research. Then you have the psychiatrist. Often these get confused. Psychiatrists back in the day used to really do a lot of counseling and talk therapy, but some of them still do. But the majority of them provide the medication. So you want to think medication, psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, or counselor, they do talk therapy. Okay, so just to make sure that you have those definitions and you understand, because I know it's overwhelming. So let's now move on to searching for a therapist. I want you to have the expectation that this can take time and you might not find someone straight away. You want to have someone who you connect with. Research has shown time and time again that the therapeutic relationship is the #1 thing that is helping clients to heal during the therapeutic process. So what does that mean? Have someone that you bond with, that you connect with, that you feel comfortable with, and that you can trust. So how do I start this process? If you have insurance, you can try Free Your Insurance and go online and see who's available. Just bear in mind that you will have to have a diagnosis, and for some insurance companies there are a limitation on how many sessions you can have a year. So something just to kind of bear in mind, but don't write it out. Another way is through your company. Some companies have an employment assistance program. They're called EAPs, whereby that your company will pay for a few sessions. How do you find out about that? Contact your HR department and find out how many sessions are covered through EAP. There are some people who'd rather not go through insurance or rather not do EAP or just want to pay out of pocket, and that is another option, is self-pay. I am self-pay, and there are just one or two companies that I am contracted with for EAP services as well. Of course, there is the great online services where you can also search for a therapist. If you put in anxiety, therapist near me, I understand that can be overwhelming. So I do encourage you to ask friends, ask family members, ask doctors. If you are part of a church organization or religious organization, you can ask them as well. Often they have departments dedicated to counseling. There are also some companies, some churches that are connected with counselors and will give you referral sources. And there are even some churches that help financially towards paying for counseling services. So don't rule that out. Another way is Instagram, social media. I'm a fan of Instagram, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, search the hashtags. Atlanta therapists, for example, Texas therapists. I've actually found counselors for other people using Instagram. Loads of us have Instagram. Loads of us have YouTube page. If you're watching this, like, that will help you to get a feel of the counselor and decide, well, I want to check this person out. So I highly recommend checking out social media as well as doing your research. Websites are Psychology Today is a great known one. Therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men is another great website. There is also some discounted websites that are helpful. Open Path is one of those discounted websites. Another big one lately is BetterHelp, which is online. So also, especially now as I'm recording this video, during the pandemic times, and you can do a lot of online sessions, or there are just therapists that just do purely online. Also, when you're thinking about it, you really want to make sure that person is licensed in your state. So I can only practice in the state of Georgia. And so you want to make sure that you have someone who is licensed in your state. There are therapists that do have more than one license in another state. Therapy Den is another search. I kind of like Therapy Den because they really specify certain groups, i.e. if you're looking for a LGBT affirming therapist, if you're looking for a Black therapist, if you're looking for a Latino therapist. So they really cater to your needs and what you are really looking for and who you will feel comfortable with. So once you've done your search and you've narrowed it down, email the therapist. Some therapists like myself, we have a form online, fill that form out, give a phone call. I will say this, I've heard numerous times that there are therapists that don't return phone calls or don't get back to you. And I am really sorry if you've ever experienced that, or you do experience that. We are not perfect, we are still humans. I will say this, please leave a message if you do make a phone call and no one answers, because technically we cannot call you back just due to confidentiality. So if you call and do not leave a message, that therapist is more than likely not to call you back. However, if you do call and they don't call you back, then that is your decision, what you decide you want to do. Make sure you check to see that they're also accepting clients at this time, well, new clients at this time. So as I said, this is about learning to see what you want. So some therapists may offer like a consultation. I myself offer a 15 minute consultation to see if we're a good fit. So things we may talk about is location, rates. Let's talk about pay, right? Self-pay. If you are paying self-pay, you can always ask for a reduced fee or sliding scale if you know you cannot afford it and you will like to attend and you want something that's within your budget. And I go back to cannot afford because there are different people at different income levels, and I do it on a trust basis, and just be really honest about with yourself and your budget and what you can afford. Maybe you might have to make some adjustments. You might not want to, but I always encourage people to look at therapy as an investment. What can I do to make this investment into me at this time? So once you've talked to the therapist, you've set an appointment, you've got, you're on the phone, like ask questions. Ask the questions that you really want to know. What's important to you? They could be, how long is this? I get that question, like how long will it be? How often do I go? My answer is always this. I understand people have a budget, and you might want to do every other week. As this is a relationship, and like I said, the relationship is what really helps. I encourage people to do at least 3 sessions back to back if finances are a challenge, because at that point you're getting to know and you're building momentum. Think about this. You have your first session, you book for another 2 weeks. Something happens and you can't make the second week, and you can't make it till maybe the 3rd week or even the 4th week. Now you have this big gap and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to start from the beginning again. And so for people, I always say I want to make sure you get the most out of this. But I also want to respect the budget. So I sit down and I kind of talk to the client. So that is something that you want to think about. How long? I have no idea how long. I do say this. The more you put into therapy is the more you get out. And I always tell clients, I'm not going to work harder than you. What does that look like? So when you're in session, if your therapist is giving you homework, giving you books to read, giving you videos or podcasts to watch, do that. Take time to journal, take time to try new things. Maybe it could be reducing what's going on in your life. Maybe it's having difficult conversations. Maybe it's taking some time to reflect and be by yourself. That's what it looks like to do the work. Because when you think about it, if you're seeing your client once a week, you're with yourself way more time, way more hours. So therefore, you really, really, really want to make sure that you're putting in the effort. The more effort you put in, the shorter your therapy time would be. So that is definitely something that you want to think about. If you can't decide on the spot if you want this therapist, tell them you'll call them back or you'll think about it, and then talk to other ones and see who you feel most connected with. I know people who have felt connected on the phone, met them, had 2 sessions and decided that person wasn't for them. That's okay. You can also do the same thing and decide that perhaps I'm not ready for therapy right now. That's okay. It's hard work. It's uncomfortable. It's not easy. That's another thing. I think it's important to go into the expectation of therapy that you're going to do some work and it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be mad. You're going to be upset. You might not like your therapist at times, but if you're doing the work and you're building a good rapport and relationship and feel comfortable, then just stay the path. Don't give up. Don't give up. Earlier, I mentioned psychiatrists and medication. Is medication for you? I don't know. Where are you? Can you manage? Can you get up? Depression and anxiety can be so overwhelming that we can't even do our daily tasks, and they're interrupting with our daily tasks. So that decision to go into medication is purely a decision for you, and one that you can discuss with your therapist if you feel like you need something extra. I will say this, studies have always shown that therapy and medication is probably the best tool for really helping you to overcome whatever you're going on. And I also add having a great support system. That could be family or it could be friends. Everyone, it looks different for everybody. If you do want to do medication, I do want you guys to know that you can't go to your primary care physician. They often deal with a lot of the depression and the anxiety. If we're going into more of the bipolar, perhaps schizophrenia and things like that, trauma-related PTSD, it's probably best that you do make an appointment with a psychiatrist. Again, the same methods I gave you to look for a therapist is the same ones that you can do also for a psychiatrist. So here are a couple of things I just want you to think about that I am always saying. First of all, therapy is up and down and like round and around. It's not a straight line. It's not A equals plus B equals C. The other thing I want you to remember is that you know you better than anyone. I always share and I always say to my clients that come in that I'm the guide, but you know you, and I'm here to guide you and help you find some sense of self-awareness and connecting to yourself more. But the answers are within you. And I said it earlier, you have to do the work. You cannot expect your therapist to work harder than you. It doesn't work like that. And so just to end this, I just want you to think about therapy as like this. This is my definition of therapy. A collaborative conversation where you leave with a deeper sense of self-awareness, insight, and clarity. And that's what I want you to think about. Some of us could be so scared and just unsure, but if we think about that collaborative conversation, self-awareness, deep insight, clarity, it kind of reduces the fears and the concerns that you may have. So if you have any questions or any comments, please let me know, and please share this video. You may have been someone who's thinking about therapy or trying to explain it to a friend or family and they wasn't sure. So I hope that this video was really helpful, and thank you as always.